Okay, I'm Garrett Martin, the games editor for Paste Magazine. I'm here at the Sennheiser and Paste Interactive Studio and Lounge. My guest today is game designer and actor Wiley Wiggins. How you doing, Wiley?
I'm doing pretty good. I had to run over, though. It's very difficult to get around town at this time of year.
Yeah, you're local. You live in Austin. So how do you feel about South by Southwest when it comes through?
I kind of feel like maybe we should stop having it be a physical thing that you go to and maybe have it just be like an internet chat room.
Right.
And they can invent some kind of like a new internet protocol for like free liquor that comes out of a straw in your computer and just like hoses you down with Monster energy drink and like vodka and like squirts ground up Oreos in your face.
Move it to the cloud, get a 3D printer to print out the alcohol for you. Yeah, you're all set.
I think that's what we should do.
Yeah. So I think people probably know you best as an actor, but you've been designing games for a while. How did you get into game design?
It's an incredibly long and bizarre and convoluted story that involved me working for years in tech support at Apple, doing pro app support, and then getting involved in doing UI design as a job, and then doing a bunch of like interactive installation art, and trying to get a group started here in Austin called Austin Creative Code, which is now defunct, that was ostensibly to teach installation artists how to program with stuff like Arduino or processing or some of the kind of like open source community driven projects. And then kind of giving up on that and realizing that the most accessible and understood sort of modality for doing interactive artwork is games. You know, the game is a problematic word, but it's this huge umbrella now that people kind of understand can encompass anything. So I'm involved with a group here in town called Juegos Rancheros now. That's me and Brandon Boyer, who's the chairperson for the IGF, and Adam Saltzman, who wrote Cannibal.
Yeah, he's going to be here tomorrow, too.
Oh, awesome.
Yeah.
He's been griping about not wanting to leave his house for this, so you must have asked him really sweetly.
Yeah, I asked him back in January, so he had a good while to like prepare for it.
He's maybe one of the nicest people I've ever known in my entire life.
Yeah.
So him and also Joe Lammert, who works for White Whale Games.
Okay.
And we have like a monthly meetup where we kind of try and introduce people to new artsy games that maybe they haven't heard about. So
you basically just have people come by to a Juegos Rancheros meeting and you showed games to them?
Yeah, we have people, last week, I was busy because we did the Dazed and Confused 20th anniversary thing, which was a crazy nightmare. It was fun, but it was a crazy nightmare. We had Media Molecule, some people from Media Molecule come down. That they made Little Big Planet and Tearaway
is the new game, yeah.
So we have events like that. People come down, talk about games, and then we give people the opportunity to play games. It's a lot of fun. So yeah, just kind of getting involved in that community. I've always been super into video games and just started thinking a lot about doing my own stuff. I've got 2 games that I'm working on. First one is this long-form adventure game, kind of in the style of older adventure clickers, like LucasArts clickers. It's called Thunderbeam, and it'll be done probably in the year 2057.
Right, I was going to ask, because you had a Kickstarter for that a couple of years ago.
No, it was like a year and a half ago.
Okay.
It's going really, really well, but me and the 2 lead developers all work day jobs. The money that we collected was to pay animators. A couple of people who worked on Waking Life with me, that animated movie that I did with Richard Linklater and Bob Sabiston around 2000, are working on the game. We pretty much just raised money to pay animators and artists.
Okay.
That's going really, really well.
It has a pretty cool look to it. It's like a 70s sci-fi adventure type of game.
It's inspired. It's kind of this pastiche of like 70s sci-fi, like Logan's Run, or like a lot of this older BBC sci-fi for kids, like Old Who, and there's a show that we like a whole lot called The Tomorrow People that we're super obsessed with. And then that's sort of mashed up with like some of the very early Japanese animation from the 70s, like Gatchaman and Space Pirate Captain Herlock and all this other nerdy stuff.
And that old Doctor Who stuff is the best stuff to watch when you come home late at night drunk from the bar and you turn on Netflix and you just load up a bunch of old Tom Baker Doctor Who.
Yeah, I love all the shampoo bottle floating in space stuff. Yeah. So the concept of this game is it's sort of that stuff. It's a little bit tongue-in-cheek, but it's mostly straight-faced. And it's kind of like trying to realize a show like that, and it's actually still formed like a TV show. It's done episodically, the game is, if it was sort of real. And so it's got permadeath, and it's these sort of swinging hip space teens with flared trousers and feathered hair solving space crimes, but when they get killed, they're permanently dead. And their corpses kind of just like lie on whatever surface of whatever moon you left them on.
Do you restart as a new character at that point, or do
you
have to go
multiple
back to the
characters?
beginning?
So there's like 4 sort of high-level characters that you start out with that are already constructed, and then you've got a sort of XCOM style, an infinite number of randomly generated squaddies. And they're actually randomly generated, like the facial features are rolled, and they got randomly generated names and histories. So you sort of use them as a buffer to protect your main kids, but they can actually level up and become valuable themselves.
Okay. Now, I've read that you're doing some really interesting stuff with the audio on Thunderbeam. How you have sort of the responsive triggering of loops and live effects, as you put it on the website.
So that was really exciting to me. We have an original soundtrack that's like a finished, like a concept album by the Octopus Project, which was a thing that kind of blew my mind. I've known them for a really long time. We've collaborated on stuff before. I've done video projections for them before. And I kind of asked them, like, hey, would you guys consider doing like maybe a couple of loops or something for this game? And they constructed this like amazing, full-on concept album soundtrack. So one of the things that we're doing, I was hanging out with David Kanaga, who did Proteus at Fantastic Arcade, which is an event that I'm involved with, and talking a whole lot about sort of deconstructed sort of audio that is as reactive as you expect a game to be reactive when you interact with it. And that's breaking things down into elements that are triggered by game events. Things can be locational, things can be rooted in time or events. So we're taking the Octopus Project album and breaking it down into these sort of sub-elements. And we had my friend Paul Slocum, who is in a band called Treewave, who's this like amazing audio programmer. He did a bunch of really amazing stuff with, he built a cartridge for the Atari 2600 that runs a totally custom written synthesizer program.
Awesome. He
did some similar stuff where he was basically making old dot matrix printers musical. So he's also an iOS programmer. So he wrote our audio engine. And what it does is it's got multiple stereo tracks that are beat synced that we're able to fade in and out portions of the song. We've got live effects on every track, and then we've got a bunch of stereo tracks that are for sort of triggering samples on top of everything else.
And it all changes based on what you do within the game?
Yeah. No, that's actually done, so that's exciting. No, it's not tied into anything in the game yet because there's really not a lot of like levels or content in the game yet.
Right.
But it's all there and it's working.
Yeah, and you've got 44 years to finish it off.
And we've got 44 years to finish it off.
Yeah, and that's become a really big and exciting trend in games, is having the sound, the score be interactive along with what you're doing as you're playing. Like Sound Shapes and Dyad were two of my favorite games
We're all
last year.
super inspired by it. Like that, when we started out, we were very like audio focused, I think.
Yeah. So you mentioned Fantastic Arcade. You're a creative director for that. What is that event about?
Yeah, so every year in September in Austin, we have Fantastic Fest, which is the largest genre film festival in America. It's sci-fi, horror, fantasy, and then also a lot of like very interesting sort of marginalized stuff from Asia and Northern Europe. We've got some really, really good film programmers there. Yeah. So 3 years ago, Mike Plant, who used to run Cinevegas and who's also been involved in some of the New Media Lounge stuff at Sundance, went to Tim League, who owns the Alamo Draft House and runs Fantastic Fest, and sort of introduced this idea of an indie game festival as a sub-event of Fantastic Fest. And I kind of inherited that, and it's on its fourth year coming up. And last year, every year we build arcade cabinets for these sort of like independently made games. Last year, our big winner, we have a jury prize. Last year, a big winner was Hotline Miami.
Oh, wow.
And they designed a special level for Hotline Miami that was actually the Highball, which is the bar and bowling alley where the event takes place.
Right.
Where you could actually go in and then kill me.
And kill everyone in the, yeah. Cool. That's a game that would be also perfect for that sort of arcade cabinet feel as well. You know that.
Yeah, that one didn't have. It was before they had Xbox controls working for it, so it was still keyboard and mouse, but it was in this great stand-up cabinet with like custom artwork on the sides, and it's such a great event.
So Austin is kind of a thriving hub for independent game development, it seems, with like Brandon Boyer here and you and Adam Saltzman and everything. What makes this a good town for that type of scene? You
know, it's weird. I think it's just this sort of like random thing that happened. We had a lot of people come to town maybe to work for studios, and then we've had lots of studio layoffs here.
Yeah, right.
And I think people come from different parts of the country and sort of fall in love with the city and want to stay here, and decide in a lot of cases now, instead of kind of entering back into the AAA meat grinder giving it a go to try their own game, and a lot of people are surprised to become successful at it.
Right.
So, and we definitely, like the group that I'm involved with Juegos Rancheros, that's like one of the big aims of the group, is to try and like provide some kind of safety net, or at least moral support for people that are kind of leaving mainstream gaming to work on projects that they really care about personally.
What do you prefer personally, acting or designing games?
Game design. I feel like I kind of passed my freshness date as far as the acting stuff goes. I started acting really young. I was 15 when I did Dazed and Confused. I didn't move to LA. I moved there for a year and tried it out, maybe around 2000 when it was probably too late.
Right.
And I was like, you know what, that's it. I'm scared of going on auditions. I feel like the entire industry is like heading towards some kind of wall, and that new media and television are gonna pick up the slack. And I don't want to be part of that. I don't want to be on that ship when it sinks. I want to be there once the studios collapse and people start to rebuild. Some of the best movies in this country were made in the 70s, after a big studio collapse. And I want to be there for that part. I don't want to be there for the blockbusterism, like the last days of blockbusterism.
And that's kind of where you are with the games right now.
Yeah.
Mitch Lasky of Benchmark Capital at the indie game panel the other day, he sort of compared right now the independent game scene to Hollywood of the late 60s, early 70s, where they didn't really know, the industry didn't know what it was doing, and they just let people do things that they couldn't have done in the past, which led to a lot of great artistry.
Yeah, that's how the innovation happens, is when that sort of like meat grinder of like needing to recoup all your money, it sort of eases off a little bit, and we allow a little bit of exploration.
So you mentioned the 20th anniversary of Dazed and Confused. Yeah. How do you feel about that, looking back now?
Man, I feel so old.
Yeah.
It was fun. We had a 10-year reunion, which was fine. 20-year reunion that's a bit much, but it was for a good cause. It was we raised a lot of money for the Austin Film Society, and we got to watch the movie again in this new theater that they've opened up, the Marquesa Hall, which is super awesome. And they've hired Lars Nilsson from Alamo, who does Weird Wednesdays, to do some programming there. So I'm super excited about that. It was, I don't know, it was great. It was great to see some of the actors that I hadn't seen in a really long time. But yeah, man, it's rough. Like, being remembered for something you did when you were 15 years old for the rest of your life.
Well, I noticed your Twitter profile, you say that if anyone asks you to touch your nose, you're going to punch them in the face.
Don't ask me to touch my nose or I'll punch your face. Yeah.
So you're also here, you're in Andrew Bujalski's new movie, Computer Chess.
Yeah.
I read that it's set in the 70s, and he shot it using the really outdated 70s video technology.
Yeah.
What was that like?
So it was inspired by, if you've ever seen, there's a photographer, William Eggleston, was also known for a bunch of really early Portapak videography. It's a very early Sony tube-driven camera. It's black and white, it's 4x3. It has this very weird, almost creamy look to it. Whenever there's lights, there's tracers. And so we sort of repurposed one of those cameras. None of the Portapak recorders work anymore, but the cameras are still functional. So we had one retrofit to record to hard disk. And that kind of provides the texture for the look of this film, and sort of like picks up in places where we couldn't art design the entire universe to look like the 70s. This is maybe my favorite movie that I've ever done. It's really awesome. It's got a lot of actual software developers in it. It's got a lot of real actors, or real actors is a terrible word. It's got a lot of professional actors in it, which is like a kind of, not anybody super well known, but that's a weird thing for Andrew to do. He's usually very 100% like non-professionals. It's some amazing casting. It looks great. I got to help with a lot of the equipment purchases, so the movie's filled with all these old computers. And it actually gets really psychedelic at the end. It's not like a straight kind of mockumentary. There's no like winking, like look at the nerds kind of humor. It's just this very like strange, unique movie, and I totally love it.
And you have a really good mustache in it.
I have a totally awesome mustache, which is completely 100% fake. So, I guess maybe like 4 years ago, I got really drunk with Andrew and told him that I never wanted to act ever again unless I could wear a facial prosthesis. And I promptly forgot that I ever said that. Like an artificial nose, or like cotton balls in my cheeks, or a Klingon forehead or something.
Like a Dick Tracy villain or something.
Yeah. that was my dream. It's like I really wanted some sort of like weird mask-like thing to hide behind. So then, like when he started working on this movie, he called me up. He's like, "Hey, you know, I really want your help on this movie. I think maybe there's even a part for you in it. I'll figure out the nose." So I had no idea what he's talking about. And then they actually like latex cast my face for a fake nose and built it, but it didn't work on camera. Yeah. So we settled for a totally fake mustache.
Right.
And I've kind of been fighting the urge to wear it every day in my regular life because I can't grow a mustache. It's really bad. It's like a little Fu Manchu thing on the sides.
Right. Oh well. Well, cool. Thanks again for coming by the Sennheiser Pace Studio interactive studio and lounge. I'm Garrett Martin, the games editor for Pace. This is Wiley Wiggins. Stick around. We'll have more interviews later on the website at some point far in the future. No one really knows when. Thank you.
Thanks for having me.
Yeah, thanks a lot.